Hello, for those of you watching and listening, we're going live in about 5 minutes. So pay attention. We have an interesting show ahead. Today, I do not have guests, but I do have some interesting news. So please pay attention. Probably news that you have not seen. So we're down to the wire, down to the last few minutes. Following the timeline that I'm given from Blog Talk Radio, according to them, I have 4 minutes and 23 seconds yet to go. So if you're here, please say hello in the chat area. Most of those I can see. I do not know if I can respond to all of them. I will, if they pop up, I will respond. I'll mention your name if you like. I'm happy to have you join me. I see one person has joined already. Hopefully, we will end up with many more as usual. This news show that I've been working on. It's not something easy to do, and I am looking for someone to help me produce this show, just the audio, and it's quite simple. It doesn't take a genius to do this. I'm just looking for help. It's an easily trainable thing, so I'm hoping somebody out there is interested in helping me produce this show. Again, it doesn't take a genius to do this. It's very, very simple and does not require a lot of time. I mean, it's 2 hours a week at the most, and maybe a half hour outside of that time. Just simple planning. If other than that, 2 hours for the show. We're getting down to the wire. We are just got another announcement. We're down to 3 minutes. Kind of excited. I am back to work full time. I retired from teaching and went back to work full time now in customer service. So this is something new for me. It's my first week back, and I'm a little bit tired, so I may end up ending the show slightly early. But trying to get things going. All right. 3 minutes. Two minutes till showtime. Now this is live on YouTube as well as on Facebook today. I don't usually put the YouTube up when I have guests, so I can post up just the interview. So I do that purposely, so I can cut out the interview and put it up just to YouTube. A lot of times people just want to listen to whoever I'm interviewing. So that's one of the things I try to achieve, is make that easy so you can get that simple segment. So if you can, please do go watch those interviews. I'm going to recommend you go look for my section on, if you have to scroll through them to find the one on the bioweapon known as COVID-19. And look at the time I put it on. March 2020. 1 minute. Here we go. We're going to be giving you the countdown pretty soon. And I'll change audio. Let's see if you can hear this. There's an introduction song. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I have a good mic, so it tends to just find what's in front of it. Sometimes you can hear the background, but pretty rare. It's one of the things that's worth buying an extra, spending some money on for a mic that does things like that. And we're getting pretty close.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report, the place the news is never hidden and the truth always wins. This is a Christian news show, so I'm going to start with Hebrews 2:16 to 18. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself has suffered being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. Well, I think it's an American saying about walking a mile in my shoes. You can substitute for my, his or her or their, yet it remains the same. It's about judging. You need to understand the experiences, the feelings, and the whole person before you pass judgment. The Son of God went into Mary to be born as a man, to experience the pains and humiliation of being a man. He grew up as a man in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. He lived for 33 years. He was tempted. He learned a trade. He worked. He supported his mother Mary after his stepfather died. He became like a father to his earthly siblings. Jesus understands our pain. He chose to be one of us and show us how to live. But more, he showed his sacrificial love for us in the way he lived and in his death for our sins. Some people think of this huge gap that exists between God from God understanding us. Yet there is not so. God came in the person of Jesus, and he did walk in our shoes. So let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, you are the one true God. You're the one who has walked a mile in my shoes. You understand me more than I understand myself. Lord, help me to always stand on your word. Help me to be the one whose actions and words match up. Help me to be the one who lives as an example of your precious love so that others may see you. In Jesus' name, amen. I have a number of things to share with you today, but I want to start with some of the things that are just simple. Among the many stories this week that have been out there exposing the lies of the media and the left are Project Veritas's expose of Fox News, following a narrative rather than what's true. Now, we've seen that on MSNBC, CNN, all these alphabet soup media idiocy that we've seen it with New York Times. You can see that with almost every major media outlet. The question is why? Well, what do they have in common? Are they all run by Democrats? Could it be that? Could it be that? I mean, you've got to sit there and ask yourself what's in common when you see that kind of thing there. If that's the only thing in common, well, are they all liberals? Yeah. Some of these things you just sit there and go, why? But yes, they're there. So also this week, it was revealed that President Trump was right about the use of hydroxychloroquine and its effectiveness against COVID-19. We'll get into that shortly. So think about that. How many thousands of lives could have been saved in the United States if the Dems and the Never Trumpers didn't say no to everything Trump said yes to? Let's not forget the media is still trying to admit that, oh, yes, Trump was right. It did originate in Wuhan, China. I told you this in March of 2020. That's something. I beat President Trump coming out with it. Think about that. I have good sources. Mine was Brad Johnson in an Italian news show, Leonardo from 2015. And I have to give credit to Vlad Tepes' blog, who put this stuff up first. That's what it comes down to. If you do your own research, if you find the stuff that's important and you get it out there and you share it, that's part of what we have to do as Christians, as listeners, as Americans. I don't care where you live. It's crazy. I'm just amazed people do not share what is true. I really am amazed about that. I do not understand that or comprehend it, but let's get into sharing what's true. I try to do that on the Sutliffian Report. You'll find that on Facebook, and I try to do that on LinkedIn. I have a lot of great news stories that are shared with me on LinkedIn, and I share them on Facebook when I can. Sometimes it's just pictures and stuff, but you know what? You have to share what's true. So let me get you this story. Surprisingly, this was in the Daily Mail. It says, this is by Harriet Alexander. It says, what the title, this is the part that kills me. Was Trump right about hydroxychloroquine? All along, new study shows drug touted by former president can increase COVID survival rates by 200%. I'm not talking 1 or 2%, 200%. You want to know why those other studies didn't work? We'll talk about that shortly. So a malaria drug, remember that, a malaria drug, which Donald Trump was condemned for hailing as possible COVID-19 treatment, can increase survival rates by up to 200%, scientists say. Scientists found that when ventilated patients with severe version of COVID were given high doses of hydroxychloroquine, their survival rates could increase dramatically. Trump said in March of 2020 he was taking it to prevent him catching the virus rather than treat it. He did not become infected until October and was not treated with the drug. My question is, did he stop taking hydroxychloroquine? Because there was a statement someplace between there and October that it was dangerous. Did he stop? No one's ever established that. The former president had previously touted hydroxy as a potential miracle treatment, with scientists lining up to insist he was wrong, simply because his name is Trump. Yet Trump's allies on Wednesday were highlighting the study conducted by St. Barnabas Medical Center in New Jersey on 255 patients. It was published on May 31st on the medical site MedRx IV. Keep thinking about this. These stories, they sit there and like, it takes them a whole year to figure out somebody told the truth. Trump's spokesman, Jason Miller, tweeted, he quoted, studies show hydroxychloroquine and zinc treatments increased coronavirus survival rate by almost 3 times. His son, Donald Trump Jr., said in the last week alone, we've learned that the media's so-called fact checkers and their big tech enforcers lied to us about the lab leak theory, hydroxychloroquine, and the clearing of Lafayette Square, all to hurt Donald Trump. What else are they lying about? You think about that. That's the question he asked. What else are they lying about? I want you to think about these things. What was the purpose? To go against Trump. Well, did this purpose damage you? Well, if you are one of those who suffered through this time with getting COVID-19 and it was severe, yes, it damaged you. So, was their purpose to get Donald Trump, or was their purpose to oppress you? That's the thing to think about. It's not just that they went against Trump, it's that they denied you from knowing the truth. I mean, they knew what was true. I read the stuff that they're talking about. They talked about a malaria drug. Remember, that's extremely important. That first 2 words, the malaria drug. Why? Because there were studies in 2015 by none other than who? The World Health Organization, that malaria drugs were the cure for coronavirus. Oh, wow. If that's true, why have they kept you from knowing this all this time? I keep going back to that study. Because it's cheap, and you do not need a vaccine. Are you catching it? This can be taken as a prophylactic, a preventative measure. It's been known and documented since 2015, if not earlier. I only looked for that 2015 study. I found it. My question is, if it was known in 2015, why was this information not available? Why does Dr. Fakey or Fauci, whichever you want to call him, why did he make sure people didn't take that? Was it to increase the death rate? These are questions you have to ask yourself, and you have to be thinking about these things. It's a horrible, horrible factual thing that this happened. I mean, these horrible things happen. I wish they were not true. Now, I want to go a little off target for a minute, and I'm going to go to something that really relates to one of my major topics, which is deceit. Now, it kind of follows along with what we're talking about. The media is deceiving people. But this is deceit in a purposeful civilization jihadi manner. Now, I found this story in a couple places, and I actually like the IB Times article better because it shares names and things. Unfortunately, there are several articles out there on this. I like that for this reason alone. So let me just share this article. It should blow your mind. Why do I say that? Because what's happening here is we have a student in the United States who is graduating, sharing something incredibly bad and deceiving everyone present. And it takes a truth teller to get out and share this. Now, this is what the article is titled, "What is Political Islam? Virginia School Board Member Tells Graduating Students to Wage Jihad." Now, there really is no such thing as political Islam. That's a joke. And why do I say that? Because in Islam, there is no Islam separate from politics. It does not exist. If you think there is something that exists like that, you are not a good Muslim if you are Islamic, because you are denying Sharia. And if you deny Sharia, according to Islam, you are not a Muslim. You're not submitting. So again, I want to tell you, this comes from Vinod D'Souza. This comes from Vinod D'Souza. Fairfax County School Board member Abrar Omesh, who is the only Muslim member in the administrative board, created an uproar during her speech. At a graduation ceremony, she urged graduating students to remember jihad while they step into a world of white supremacy. Her speech didn't go down well with parents, students, and the administration. Now, this name, Omesh, you pay attention with that. Omesh took to the stage, speaking in English. "The world sees the accolade, the diploma, the fruit of all your years, yet to be remembered, of the detail of your struggle," she said. And she spoke in Arabic, which translates to her calling for students to remember jihad, reminding them that they are entering a world of racism. This is, quote, "racism, extreme versions of individualism and capitalism, white supremacy." Azra Nomani, a Muslim mother, slammed Abrar Omesh, giving a controversial speech during students' graduation, and called her statement a wake-up call. She used the term political Islam during her speech on Fox and Friends. She was probably told to say that. There's no such thing. Are you catching it? No such animal as political Islam. It's Islam, period. During her appearance on Fox and Friends, yeah, think about that. Nomani, a former Wall Street Journal columnist, revealed Omeyah's speech was indicative of radicalization of Muslims and called her ideas a Trojan horse, which will destroy the very fabric that makes America. That is what civilization jihad is all about, people. It is entirely a Trojan horse. They come here, they grow, they get to a certain population percentage, and then they try to take over. You can see this throughout Europe. Wherever Islam has gone, it's happened. Quote, Umayyash, I know her very well, she said. I am also Muslim. Her father and the elders of the community that brought her to office are part of this network of political Islam. Again, it's Islam in America. Who could we likely be talking about? Could it be CARE? Could it be the Muslim Brotherhood? Again, those are entities that are Islamic. Think about it. Let's keep going. I'm going to skip this section on political Islam. Again, there is no such animal on political Islam. Think about this. They encourage jihad at a high school graduation in the United States. This is real. It happened in Virginia, Fairfax County. Doesn't that blow your mind? This stuff is real and it's happening. Now, if that's happening here, and why I'm saying that if it's happening here, I want you to think about what does it mean for those people who are in these countries where these violent pushes for violence are. President Biden pushed for financing this week. I want to talk about that because that kind of goes with this. Do we want to support people who push for jihad? I mean, definitely not, because they're trying to kill us. What do I mean by this? Non-Muslims. If you're a non-Muslim, they're trying to kill you. That's what jihad is all about. It's a war against non-Muslims. It is not a struggle. That is a lie. Why do I say that? Read Sharia. It says it right there. Let me see. I can even read it right out of the book for you. Pick this book up. It is called Reliance of the Traveler. Reliance of the Traveler. It's 06. Let's get right there. It's what am I thinking of? 09. It's probably farther back. I have to think. When you start reading what jihad is all about, and you look at you look it up in their scriptures, and you find it out. You find some incredibly shocking things. And this is what we're going to get to in a minute. So I'll put this away for now and stay on target. So President Biden has pushed for financing Iran again. Now, what am I talking about? He wants to lift the sanction on Iran's top terrorism financiers. Whoa, did you catch this? This is the president of the United States. He wants to lift the sanctions so they can get the money that they had invested in the United States. Will that give them millions of dollars? Yes. Is that lawful according to the United States? Absolutely not. We are not allowed to finance terrorism because we prosecute people who finance terrorism. Now, Adam Credo with the Washington Free Beacon wrote this article on June 15th. It states the Biden administration is prepared to lift sanctions for the Iranian regime's primary vehicles for terrorism financing, according to the ranking Republican on the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, which is investigating Treasury Department efforts to waive these crippling measures. Senator Pat Toomey, Republican of Pennsylvania, whose committee has jurisdiction over the Treasury Department, is demanding the Biden administration turn over internal documents relating to its impending decision to dismantle the toughest sanctions campaign in the United States history. Toomey suspects the administration will lift sanctions on Iran's central bank and its national oil company, both of which were sanctioned by the Trump administration for acting as the primary funders of Tehran's global terrorism operation. As negotiations with Iran and Vienna continue this week, Toomey and other leading Republicans are stepping up efforts to block the Biden administration from granting Iran billions of dollars in sanctions relief. GOP foreign policy leaders say they are seeing signs that President Joe Biden will waive sanctions that even the Obama administration pushed to keep in place. So he's worse than Obama. Are you catching that? Now, we called him Obama for a reason. I call this president Joe Dementia because I don't believe he's able or capable to make these decisions because he has dementia. Think about that. Quote, I am particularly troubled by reports that the administration is preparing to lift sanctions on significant economic entities, including the Central Bank of Iran and National Iranian Oil Company, Toomey wrote in June 10th letter to the Treasury Department, in which he demands that the agency produce scores of documents related to future sanctions relief. These firms were designated as terrorism-supporting entities following a 2017 law mandating terrorism sanctions on IRGC agents and affiliates. Did you catch that? A law. So, it is illegal for them to do this. This law makes it impossible. But Joe Biden wants to break the law. Is this felonious? Absolutely. Is this illegal? Absolutely. But he's the president. No, it's still wrong. He should be arrested. Again, anybody that finances terrorism gets arrested and charged with a crime. So why are we not doing that? Let me keep going with this article. It says, like other congressional committees investigating Biden administration's closed-door negotiations with Iran, Toomey's committee is questioning claims by U.S. diplomats that sanctions relief will not fund Iran's regional terror operations. Even former President Obama did not lift terror designations when signing the original 2015 nuclear deal. Toomey wrote, meanwhile, since the beginning of the Biden administration, U.S. sanctions have been flagrantly violated by America's strategic rival, China, which has imported a record amount. This is crazy. I mean, once you think about this, yes, we have a rival. China's our rival, but everything that we would oppose, China is going to approve. And we have Mr. Wimpy in office. After the original nuclear accord was signed, Iran went on a military spending spree, laying waste to claims by the Obama administration that the sanctions relief would be spent helping the Iranian people. No, they spent all that money on things like not missiles, but rockets and things like that, which they sent to where? Think about that. They sent it to Hamas. And what did Hamas do with those rockets? And then they also financed several campaigns that were involved with terrorism groups. So what are we talking about? We're talking about groups like Al-Qaeda, Hamas, PLO, Palestinian Jihad. There's several different entities that they finance. Think about that. Shiites and Sunnis get along pretty well when it's fighting non-Muslims. And there's a claim that they will kill each other off. Yes, they do hate each other, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend overrules in Islam. Think about this. President Biden wants to finance people who want jihad. This goes on. You're going to see this as a theme, and you should not be doubting this. So this week, not only has President Biden pushed for Iran, a major sponsor of terrorism, to have funds released for them, for their terrorism financiers, Biden is asking for the USA to finance Hamas, again, and the PLO. Monies were designated by the U.S. Congress, but one senator has held up finances for a good reason. Hamas and PLO, just like Iran, support terrorism. Well, I mean, if you think about this, this is something we should be concerned about. Should we be allowing our money to go to support terrorism? Again, what kills me is it's one person doing what's right again. When you do what's right, it doesn't matter how many people stand with you. It's that you're doing something right. Well, Senator Risch is the one blocking the aid that they want released. Senator Risch, this is a news story. I believe it's by Adam Credo. Again, yes, Adam Credo with the Washington Free Beacon. And I love this article, particularly there's a letter, which I'll read when I'm done with the article. But I'm just impressed. This came out yesterday. Senator Jim Risch, a Republican of Idaho, ranking Republican on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, says he will not cave to demands from Democrats that he lift a congressional hold on a tranche of Palestinian aid money until he is provided with guarantees that the taxpayer funds will not enrich terrorist groups, including Iran-backed Hamas. House Democrats led by Representative Jamie Raskin have been pressuring Risch to lift a hold on some $75 million in aid money in the wake of Hamas's war last month with Israel. Raskin and 105 other Democrats pressed Risch on the matter in a letter sent earlier this month. They claim the money is needed for humanitarian reconstruction projects in the Gaza Strip, which came under intense fire from Israel as it struck scores of Hamas positions. Risch, who did recently lift his hold on a portion of these funds, maintains the outstanding allocation will aid Palestinian terror groups. Risch rejected the Democratic pressure campaign on Wednesday in a response letter to Democrats declaring that he will not release the funds until the Biden administration provides assurances that the money will not be diverted to Hamas or be used by Palestinian government to pay terrorists and their families, according to a copy of his letter. Now, let me pull up that letter. It's not very long, but I think it's powerful. So let me read that piece to you. And this was obtained, and I have to say, it was obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. I have to say that some of these things you have to sit there and ask, what's going on when you ask for finances to be released. So this Senator Risch wrote an incredible response. So he wrote to Congressman Raskin, okay, he's in the House of Representatives. He wrote this: "Dear Mr. Raskin, this will respond to your letter on June 4th regarding assistance to the Palestinian and importantly correct several inaccuracies in your letter. First, you mischaracterized that the Senate is holding urgent humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people. This simply is not true. Congress does not have the ability to hold humanitarian assistance funds once appropriated. The administration has already released over $20 million in congressionally appropriated international disaster assistance funds, not subject to congressional notification, for urgent humanitarian assistance. Think about that. 20 million of your tax dollars has already gone to a country, to a governing structure that supports terrorism, that pays people who killed Jews. Think about that. 20 million of your tax dollars did that. And the administration has provided 150 million for UNRWA under the Migration and Refugee Assistance Account, which also is not subject to congressional holds. Your letter misrepresents those facts. So they've already sent, 170 million to this area. Now the name UNRWA, let's get this accurate. There are no refugees in Palestine, in the area known as Palestine. Why? Because they were born there, because they live there. They are not refugees. They've lived there to be a refugee, you have to be politically persecuted. They are not politically persecuted. You have to be outside the country you live in. Okay. You came from. You have to be outside that country. So if they're outside that country, they have no rights to where they are. Something to think about if you want to call them refugees. To be clear, the only state, Senator Risch continues, to be clear, the only state in the United States agency and international development, USAID, funds subject to congressional notification holds are longer-term economic development and security assistance projects using economic support funds and international narcotics and law enforcement funds. There were never any holds on the INCLE funds the administration recently notified to Congress, which both Congress and Israeli government support because it contributes to security in the West Bank. However, longer-term development projects remain subject to several restrictions under the law. Congress has passed laws including, importantly, the Taylor-Force Act, which you supported. These laws are designed to ensure that ESF funds you highlight do not directly benefit the Palestinian Authority while it promotes pay-to-slay programs or get diverted to Hamas and other terrorist organizations. As you know, the PA and PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization program, continue to incentivize and celebrate violence against Israelis through the egregious pay-to-slay program. In 2019 alone, the Palestinians spent $151 million to support imprisoned terrorists. Additionally, you are likely unaware of a recent U.S. Government Accountability Office report that raised concerns that USAID subcontractor non-compliance with applicable anti-terrorism laws. These issues deserve rigorous oversight. Sadly, just after Biden administration announced additional assistance to the West Bank and Gaza, PA President Abbas issued a $42,000 martyrs payment to a Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist who stabbed 2 Israelis to death in 2015. This is outrageous. The abhorrent practice concerns me deeply and should be repugnant to all members of Congress. Also, your letter fails to recognize the funds already released. Days before your letter was written, like-minded colleagues and I released a portion of the administration's ESF requests that the administration identified as quick impact, which were definitely Taylor-Force compliant and would positively benefit stability in affected areas. Currently, there are multiple holds on the longer-term projects as they are under review for compliance with the law. I hope you and your colleagues are not suggesting we should turn a blind eye to the potential of U.S. funds being used to support terrorism. Further, the $151 million provided by the PA dwarfs the tens of millions the Biden administration has requested in ESF notifications to Congress. Unfortunately, both Hamas and the PA have exacerbated the plight of the Palestinian people with their own narrow agendas for far too long. A blank check will not improve the condition of the Palestinian people, which their leaders in the West Bank and Gaza subordinate their need to violent agendas. If you and your colleagues truly care about the plight of the Palestinian people, I would strongly encourage you to condemn and call on the PA to end its egregious pay-to-slay programs and instead direct this money towards humanitarian assistance and other economic projects. This would have far greater benefit for the Palestinian people than the portion of U.S. tax dollars funded that ESF that is still under review. So long as the pay-to-slay program and activities it supports continue, you can count on me, he writes, to robustly examine any funds which may wind up in the hands of Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or the PA. Signed by Senator James E. Risch, ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Now, has anybody shown you that letter before? My question is, why not? Why aren't you being shown or told these things? Because they're afraid you'll find out the truth. You'll learn what a dangerous thing the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is. It is scary dangerous. It is wildly dangerous. But they don't want you to know these things. I wish they would let you hear them. I wish they would let you see them. But that's why Global Patriot Radio exists. That's why Blog Talk Radio is still there for us. It's why people like me are on here, and the other hosts with Global Patriot Radio. We're out because no one is telling you the truth on some of these things. So we came to tell that to you. I wish we could do things in a better manner to get the truth out to you. But some of these things are just so shocking. If you actually take the time and look at some of these things, you will be shocked. I recommend you go to that site, the Washington Free Beacon, and it's called freebeacon.com, and read that article, get that letter, share it out on social media. It's an embarrassment to anybody who wants this. It should be read at every local congressman who signed on that wants this. Somebody should be taking that letter and reading it to whoever signed on. I mean, I can go back and read those letters to you. I mean, read you whose names signed on requesting this. Why not? Why not do that? Let me just see here. I can pull that up easily. Let me tell you the names of the people who want the aid released. And okay, that aid that they're talking about, let me see if I can get it. I thought I had a list of the names. I apologize. I think it's, let me just come back here. I think it's right here. Okay, I'll read you the names. It should blow your mind. David E. Price, Representative David Price, Representative Jan Schakowsky, Representative Donald Byer Jr., Representative Jesus Choi Garcia, Representative Rashida Tlaib, and no surprise there, Representative Jim Cooper, Representative Alan Lowenthal, Representative Gerald Connolly, Representative Gerald Huffman, Andy Levin, Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan, Representative Ilhan Omar, Representative Zoe Lofgren, Representative Joaquin Castro, Representative Sarah Jacobs. This list goes on and on and on. I mean, there's about, again, 100 and some odd. I want you to think about going and getting this list. I would call. Now, I'm going to double check quickly and see if my congressman is an idiot. I don't trust them. A congressman, if you live in New York State like I do, you can't trust the people here who represent you, because most of them their priorities are communism. I wish it was not true. It is unfortunately very true. But this is the stuff you need to know. It's shocking. So while I'm saying this, I have an incredible concern. And I have an incredible concern. One of these is simply this: that Joe Biden called for jihad 10 months ago. Now he wants to finance it. Again, I don't think Joe Biden knows what he's doing, but I do want to play that for you again. So just give me a second. I'll get this started in Blog Talk Radio, and I will then go to put it up in. This is, I mean, an incredibly shocking piece. It's only 8 minutes long. It's David Wood's piece on it. The reason I'm going to play David Wood's piece on it is that occasionally you run into people who do not know a lot of what some of us who are, quote, experts in this field. I won't claim to be an expert in much of anything on this, but Biden called for jihad. Hi, Annie. Biden called for jihad. And the reason I want you to understand that is if Biden called for jihad, now he's calling for the financing of it. That's something we need to be concerned about. It's extremely concerning. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about something incredibly dangerous when you think about it. And here we go. I'm going to pull this up again on Blog Talk Radio really quick, and then I will play I'll put it into the video. Here we go. Biden wants jihad.
Had to talk about Muhammad. I know he was reading a script, I know that, but he just had to read what the script said about Muhammad. I don't say much about elections. All these politicians have to do is not say something stupid about Muhammad. I don't care if they talk about Muhammad, just don't say something stupid, and they won't hear a word from me. Unfortunately, we've got a man who's running for President of the United States of America, quoting Muhammad without having the slightest clue what the quote actually means. But I know what it means, and you're about to know what it means. And once you understand what it means, you'll understand why a man who wants to be President of the United States should not be quoting these words. Joe Biden just said to his Muslim listeners,
Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs, whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
What a great quote. I wonder what Muhammad meant by it. Did Muhammad mean what Joe Biden apparently thinks he meant? Let's find out. In Sahih Muslim 177, a small dispute breaks out because a Muslim is about to deliver a sermon before the prayer. Another Muslim objects and points out that Muhammad would do the sermon after the prayer. So we have to do things the way Muhammad commanded. And then there's this quote, I heard the messenger of Allah say, whoever among you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand by taking action. If he cannot, then with his tongue by speaking out, and if he cannot, then with his heart by hating it and feeling it is wrong. And that is the weakest of faith. So far, so good, but sometimes we have multiple hadiths, and one hadith will expand upon another hadith. Maybe we should check and see if Muhammad explains himself. The next hadith, Sahih Muslim 178, is basically a repeat of 177, but the one after that goes into a little more detail about what Muhammad means by the hand, the tongue, and the heart. Sahih Muslim 179. It was narrated from Abu Rafi, from Abdullah bin Masud, that the Messenger of Allah said, there is no prophet whom Allah sent to any nation before me, but he had disciples and companions among his nation who followed his path and obeyed his commands. Then after them came generations who said what they did not do and did what they were not commanded to do. Whoever strives against them with his hand is a believer. Whoever strives against them with his tongue is a believer. Whoever strives against them with his heart is a believer. Beyond that, there is not even a mustard seed's worth of faith. So, prophets are sent to their nations and they give commands. They establish laws. Their followers obey their commands. But later generations come along and they don't obey the commands. So the true followers of the prophet have to strive against these rebellious people with the hand, i.e. by physically forcing them to obey God's law, or if they can't strive with the hand because their enemies are more powerful than they are, then they can strive with the tongue, i.e. by preaching and condemning and rebuking and winning support. Or if it's too dangerous for them to verbally condemn the rebellious generation because they might get killed or something, then they can strive with the heart, i.e. by inwardly despising the evil and rebellion against the prophet, and by longing for the day when the prophet's commands can be enforced by the hand. According to Muhammad, if you strive with your hand, you're a believer, a Muslim. If you strive with your tongue, you're a believer, a Muslim. If you strive with your heart, you're a believer, a Muslim. But if you don't at least strive with your heart, if you don't at least hate the rebellion against the Prophet's laws, you have no real faith. You're not a Muslim. Now, when it comes to Muhammad, he's not simply a prophet sent to a particular nation. He's God's final prophet, and he's sent to the entire world. His commands are for everyone. There's a word for the collection of legal commands Muhammad brought. The word is Sharia. So Muhammad brought Sharia, and his followers obeyed his commands. But other people don't obey his commands. What are his followers supposed to do? They're supposed to strive against disobedience and rebellion with the hand or with the tongue, or at the very least, with the heart. Do you know what the Arabic word for strive here is? All the Arabic speakers who are watching right now certainly do. The Arabic word is jahadahum, i.e., wage jihad. Muhammad brought Sharia, and his followers have to establish and enforce it. They establish and enforce it through different forms of jihad. There's jihad of the hand, establishing and enforcing Sharia through fighting and carrying out the legal punishments. Think ISIS. There's jihad of the tongue, preaching and condemning and calling for Sharia. Think Anjem Choudhury. And there's jihad of the heart, hating the evil around you and longing for the day when it will be destroyed. So, Joe Biden just told Muslims,
Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs, whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
any Muslim who actually knows his sources and understands his religion just heard Joe Biden say, Muhammad commanded you to kill apostates and to kill homosexuals and to chop the hands off of thieves and to terrorize the unbelievers. So you need to obey him to whatever extent you're able, depending on your status in society. The United States of America is in rebellion against the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, so wage whatever form of jihad you can against it, because if you don't, you're not a real Muslim. Probably not what he intended, but that's what informed Muslims just heard him say. Now, there are a couple of possibilities here. Joe Biden's speechwriter might be a total moron who did a Google search for great quotes from the Prophet Muhammad and put this quote into the speech without realizing what the quote is actually about. A more disturbing possibility is that an informed Muslim wrote that speech for Biden and that it was a coded message to other informed Muslims. The message would be something like, "This guy will say whatever we tell him to say. To prove it, we'll have him call for jihad against his own country. Vote for him because he's ours now." For those of you who are cheering because I just criticized Joe Biden and raised a disturbing possibility about why he accidentally called for jihad against America, and for those of you who are freaking out because I just criticized Joe Biden and raised a disturbing possibility about why he accidentally called for jihad against America, let me say, this is not about Republican versus Democrat. George W. Bush said some of the dumbest things ever about Islam. This isn't about party. This is about stupid and dangerous. And whatever he was in the past, Joe Biden, right now, in 2020, is completely, utterly, totally stupid and very, very dangerous. More on this tomorrow.
Now we are back on the screen. Okay. If you're watching the video, you notice my book background disappeared. I need to go get another cord, so I'm not using my Wi-Fi. So the book background disappeared. Sounds kind of a little embarrassing that that's what happened, but that's the joy of having a green screen, that you can do those things. I want to get into a topic, again, that I said last week that I've been avoiding, which is critical race theory. And I probably should not, as a retired professional educator, been avoiding it. It brings back bad memories to me of sitting in staff meetings and being told I'm a racist because I'm white. When you work in an urban environment, that is not an unusual activity. What's interesting in the urban environments, at least where I worked, the vast majority of teachers are white. It is not a equal mix by any means, but some black educators who tend to be in administrators tend to think that white teachers cannot. It's crazy. I want to think that this isn't true, but this is the stuff I dealt with, and it just made me angry. So it's the reason why I put aside critical race theory, and I didn't want to talk about it because it would make me angry, and it would remind me of some of these horrible things where I would get yelled at because I would point it out. You're calling all of us white people racists. And then I get yelled at by other people in the room who were white and say, well, you're not understanding. I says, no, you're calling us racist. And critical race theory just brings it to the forefront. My last year teaching in the Rochester City School District, I think it was over the last two years, I saw 2 movies that called us all racist, and I discussed it. I let people know what I think. I've never been able to be quiet when I think I'm in the right. I've learned to become more boisterous since working with Blog Talk, the great people on Global Patriot Radio, and people like Annie with Southern Sense. Oh my gosh, I owe her still a lot just from some of the stuff she said and just a little bit of time I spent with her. But this standing up and saying what's right is stuff we have to do. Now, there are more people doing that about critical race theory. So even NBC News actually covered this, which I was surprised about. When NBC News starts to cover something they consider right, they consider critical race theory a good thing. So I want to read you their article, and we'll talk a little bit about it. It's entitled Critical Race Theory Battle Invades School Boards with Help from Conservative Groups. Now, listen to the topic again, the title again. The battle invades school boards. The school board's already made a decision to accept it. That's the problem. This is by Tyler Kincaid and Brady Zadrani and Ben Collins. This came out on the 15th. A booby-trapped billboard. A list of demands, a conservative media frenzy. Jeff Porter, a superintendent of a wealthy suburban school district in Maine, had no idea that in his community was about to become part of a national battle when in the summer of 2020, a father began accusing the school district of trying to indoctrinate his children by teaching critical race theory. To Porter, the issue was straightforward. The district had denounced white supremacy in the wake of George Floyd's murder by police, but did not teach critical race theory, the academic study of racisms. You know, hear what they're calling this? The academic study of racism. That is not what critical race theory is. So, again, they're recognizing there's a thing there, but they're not telling you, the public, the truth. It is not an academic review by any means. It's not only propaganda, it's lying to the public. I mean, that's what propaganda is, but that is an outright lie. It says, but the parent, Sean McBeardy, grew increasingly disgruntled and soon connected with No Left Turn in Education, a rapidly growing national group that supports parents as they fight against lessons on systemic racism. Again, if you think there's systemic racism, and we just voted for a black president and we reelected him, was there a glass ceiling? No. Was there any higher position in this government? No. Are there other people who are CEOs of their government, of their companies, where there's no glass ceiling? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the truth. And when people are saying that systemic racism. How can you get to be president of the United States where in a country where there exists systemic racism? I mean, these are things you have to sit there and ask. Now, if they think there's systemic racism because he wasn't impeached, well, that goes another direction. Maybe there's more permissiveness. That's not necessarily racism. All right, let's keep going on this. This is just nutty. In a movement that has amped up grassroots parental organizing around the country, it's true that has, bringing the lens of stakes of national politics. Whose national politics? Would that be the party, the Democratic Party? Along with a playbook of seasoned GOP activists to school boards. Here's a quote from Porter. He says, "I was very naive at the beginning of the year," Porter said. "I thought I was a concerned parent who had taken it a little too far. I didn't understand this until recently, but these were tactics from national organizations to discredit the entire district." So he's already, this is the stuff. They're putting stuff down to, again, they are discrediting anyone who stands against critical race theory. Well, I suggest if you want to find something interesting, there on Facebook, there are conservative teacher groups. I'm part of one of them. And I have yet to see a conservative teacher stand behind this. So there are many good teachers who are fighting this insanity. And they are like me. They have sat through some of these sessions that calls them racist just because they stand against racism. I don't care if you're white, black, purple, orange, green, whatever. Racism is wrong in any form. But to say in this country there is systemic racism, that's problematic. So with that said, there was an article in Canada. Now, I like this writer. I don't only think he's right, but I think he exposes a lot about Islam in Canada. Tarek Fatah. Tarek Fatah is one of these, he kind of describes himself as a Muslim reformer, but he's more of a socialist than I would consider him a Muslim. So he's, again, I don't consider him a great example of Islam. To be a Muslim reformer, you cannot exactly call yourself Muslim, because that makes you apostate. Those who are, quote, Muslim reformers know this, but they don't want you to know that, unfortunately. Okay, so let me get this going here. This is Fatah. There is no Islamophobia in Canada, June 16th. Where else in the world would a Catholic prime minister, the leader of its right-wing Christian conservative opposition, the left-wing party headed by a turbaned Sikh, and the head of a separatist party join the city's mayor, the province's premier, and tens of thousands of ordinary citizens to condemn the horrific mass murder of a Muslim family, allegedly at the hands of home-schooled Christian man? The answer, of course, is Canada. The entire nation stood in solidarity with us Muslims, yet the only consensus heard for days since the tragedy is that this country of ours that opened itself to so many Muslims fleeing tyranny is itself Islamophobic. What more do we Muslims, he writes, what more do we Muslims expect from Canada? Our impact on Canada has forced almost every urban secondary school to allocate space for makeshift mosques at times, cafeterias where Islamic clerics go to give sermons to ensure gender segregation, and lecture our youth on how to reject the Western way of life. He continues, no Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, Jew, or Baha'i demands special prayer rooms inside workplaces, universities, or washrooms to accommodate midday washing rituals Muslims undergo. No manager dare say no to our request, and if they do, Lord help them, en route to the Human Rights Complaints Office. Everything we ask, we get, including calls to prayer on mosque loudspeakers in neighborhoods where the majority of the population is not even Muslim, and pray what What do we say in those prayers? Pious and religious Muslims who pray 5 times a day invoke a verse that refers to Jews as people who have incurred the wrath of Allah and Christians as people who have been led astray. The actual verse of the Quran says, "Guide us to the straight path, the way of those upon whom you have bestowed your grace, not the way of those who have earned your wrath, nor of those who went astray." From the Quran published in Saudi Arabia to its interpretation by the 8th century jurist Ibn Kathir, all claim that these words or derision are meant to describe Jews and Christians. The question then is simple. He says, if we Muslims are comfortable denouncing Jews and Christians 48 times a day in our 5 daily prayers, then isn't it we who spread hate and then play victim? If it's true that Islamophobia exists in Canada, then our country is not alone. Wherever we Muslims live or have moved as a minority, the fact is, it is our behavior in relations with the majority and our contempt for the community's religion and civilization has aroused in them the supported irrational fear of our faith, Islam, or our presence as Muslims. I want you to think about this. He's saying there is no Islamophobia. You know what? He's right. In Canada, they are very permissive. They're permissive to the point where they overblow it. The Human Rights Commission, that will sue anybody and who makes the money. In Canada, Human Rights Commission, just to let you know, there is like one individual who actually brings most of the cases. And surprisingly, guess who financially benefits? Oh. Spend your time doing some research. You will find, unfortunately, that this is true. Some of these things are just horrible, factual things that you wish you didn't know. And I have a lot of good friends in Canada who share these things with me, and I never cease to be amazed. If you think Canada's government is anything like the United States, it is not. They still have references to the crown in their governmental structure. They say they are not part of the United Kingdom. Spend some time learning about their governmental structure and ask them if that's true. Why do you have offices of the crown? Who's the king or the queen that they're referring to? Ask those questions, because I do. And this is crazy. All right. Top, this comes from Breitbart. Top MP Javid slams, this is all the way from the UK. I'm jumping across the other pond for me. When I jump across one pond, I'm talking about Lake Ontario, and now we're going across the Atlantic. I have included a section in my new book, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad. And you can buy that on Amazon currently. I think I'm going to do a couple fixes to it before I get it into the bookstore, because I look at some things like this and I always want to include them, but I can't. There's just a few switches I want to do for the bookstore one. But here we go. Top MP Javid, member of Parliament Javid, slams child marriage as child abuse. Admits it's prevalent in certain communities. Oh, who are we talking about? Could that be Islamic communities? Why didn't he say that? Conservative member of Parliament Sajid Javid has said allowing children under 18 to marry is child abuse, admitting it was a cultural practice prevalent in certain communities. Mr. Javid, who had served as Home Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer, made the remarks after drafting a bill to scrap the legal loophole which allows underage people to be coerced into marriages. Under current law, 16 to 17-year-olds can marry with their parents' consent in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. In Scotland, the legal age to marry without parental support is 16. Speaking to GB News on Wednesday, Mr. Javid called child marriage child abuse, continuing that, quote, "When I bring this up with people, they think it's awful and something that happens in developing countries. But actually it's happening right in here." And he's talking about in his own country, the England, United Kingdom, and the outcomes for these children is absolutely awful. The member of Parliament, for Bromsgrove, in the West Midlands, admitted that it does seem to be more prevalent in certain communities. That is Islam he's talking about. Javed of Pakistani heritage said, "When I was growing up, I saw this for myself. I'll never forget the sight of a 16-year-old girl getting married when I was barely an adult myself to a 30-year-old man. The reason it was happening is she was a British girl married to a man in Pakistan that she'd never met, and her parents wanted to get a visa for him so he could come and work as cheap labor for the family business. This still goes on, and it's coerced marriages just as much as forced marriage." Mr. Javid previously said that the majority of cases involve young girls coerced into marrying older men for religious and cultural reasons. The latest data from the Office for National Statistics found out that in 2017, more than 3 times, 140, the number of teenage girls were married with parental consent compared with boys, 43. He added that child marriage is associated with complications during pregnancy, honor violence, and domestic and sexual abuse. The bill is set to be debated in November in the United Kingdom, and this Javid has said he is confident ministers will back his proposal, which is needed for the bill getting on the parliamentary schedule. If passed, it would outlaw marriages for under 18s in England and Wales. However, 2 previous attempts to raise the minimum age for marriage failed to be passed. During the 2016 attempt, lawmakers heard that the government believes that the existing requirements of parental or judicial consent provide adequate protection. But anti-child marriage campaign groups have said the parental consent amounts to parental coercion. Figures from the government's Forced Marriage Unit, published last summer, found that in 2019, more than 1/4 of cases involved minors. Across all age groups, the highest prevalence of cases involved the focused country of Pakistan, 41%, followed by Bangladesh, 11%, and India, 5%. What we're talking about, these are all, they named those countries, but they're all Muslims. The UK in recent years has seen poor conviction rates for the form of child abuse, with a 2017 report finding that while the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children was handling record high calls from children fearing of or being subjected to marriages, there has been just 1 conviction for forced marriage up to the end of 2016, which can carry a penalty of up to 7 years in prison. By 2018, there had been 3 convictions, but a report revealed that the police were only pressing charges in around 3% of cases. Did you catch that? They're only pressing charges in 3% of cases. Oh, so it sounds like, isn't that close to what they're doing with protecting their girls? Oh, they're only pressing charges in less than 50% of the rapes, and in their terms, grooming gang abuses. It just disgusts me. They call it grooming gang. It just disgusts me. This information, I'm going to tell you, go to Breitbart.com. Look for top MP Javid slams child marriage as child abuse admits it's prevalent in certain communities. It gets a little bit too detailed for me. I'm not willing to get into some of the issues today. One of the harder things that it'll actually go in and talk about some of the horrors of the abuses they undergo, and this includes FGM, which is one of the chapters in my new book. Find out for yourself. Stop listening to what people tell you. Stop listening to what I tell you. Go check out what I'm sharing. I do not want the truth to be hidden. I'd rather have you find this information for yourself. Next up, we have a man who smuggled out of the UK. I want you to think about this. This article talks about an Iranian who got into the UK. He was accepted as a member of their country. And what does he do? He goes and smuggles people into the country. Now, this Iranian man has been jailed for 2 years and 7 months after attempting to smuggle, think about this, more migrants into the UK, hidden in sofas in the backs of vans for hire. So he illegally brings people in. Yusuf Rahmani was today sentenced. This article came out on the 14th. Sentenced on the 14th to 2 years and 7 months at Preston Crown Court after pleading guilty to breaking UK immigration law. Rahmani, a 21-year-old from Iran, has been granted asylum in the UK. Oh, my solution here: don't jail him, send him back to Iran. Why should you pay for that? Send him back. Put his face. I think they're afraid that he'll just come back without permission and just be there, because they're not stopping people from coming in. But here we go. Rahmani, a 21-year-old from Iran who had been granted asylum in the UK after entering the UK in the back of a lorry, which is a truck, was caught attempting to smuggle people from France and Belgium to the UK. From December 2018 until April 2019, Rahmani hired 6 different men with a van, drivers, advertising their services on social media, and agreed for them to drive from the UK to France or Belgium to collect and transport second-hand furniture to the UK. Unknown to the hired drivers, hidden within the sofas, were migrants who had to be paid to be smuggled into the UK, concealed in the bases. The drivers were instructed not to help with the loading of the vehicles and were distracted while the loading took place. Within 2 years of entering the UK, Rahmani had established a criminal network to facilitate foreign nationals illegally entering into the United Kingdom. Minister for Immigration, Compliance and Justice, Chris Phillips, said Rahmani showed a blatant disregard for the laws of the United Kingdom, a country which provided him with safety and a place to live, for which he rightly paid the price. He rightly paid the price? Think about this. See, I would not defend this man in any way. My solution is rather simple. You came to this country claiming you needed asylum, and you spit on us by violating our laws, by doing this. We're sending you back. You no longer have asylum. That's the solution. People need to see that kind of thing. Why they are not doing it, it is beyond my understanding, and I can't grasp the reasoning for defending that. Okay, my next article comes from Israel, and the national interest. I found this article interesting. How Hamas took UNRWA hostage. I found it interesting, and I still think the United Nations is partnering and endorsing Islam in many ways. When you start calling, use this R here, United Nations Relief Works Agency, I think that their purpose here, they do call the people in Israel, the Muslim-controlled areas of Israel, refugees. That is a danger. It challenges the whole world. It insults every person who is a true refugee. Again, these are not refugees. They were born there. They have lived there. All their lives. Their generations before them have lived there. Go too far back, they were probably not there. They are the new ones there. Many Israelis have come in from other countries and adopted back in. Again, there were Jews always in Israel, back centuries, long before Islam was even created. So think about that. UNRWA, duped by Hamas. They say it took it hostage. This article is by Alex Joff and Asaf Romarovsky. Truth is rare commodity when it comes to international organizations, all the more so when it comes to the UNRWA, the internationally funded welfare organization for Palestinians. The UNRWA employs truth-telling can be a career killer or worse. Consider the case of Matthias Schmal, UNRWA's director of operations in the Gaza Strip, who is now persona non grata and forbidden to return to Hamas-ruled Gaza. Shmuel's crime was telling Israel Channel 12 that Israeli attacks on Hamas installations were precise. He said, "I'm not a military expert, but I would not dispute that. I also have the impression that there is a huge sophistication in the way Israel military struck over the last 11 days. Shmuel also denied that there were shortages of food and medical supplies in Gaza. Despite saying that, so yes, they did not hit, with some exceptions, civilian targets. But the viciousness and ferocity of the strikes was heavily felt. Shmuel's remarks produced outrage among Palestinian factions, including Hamas, which stated his comments are a complete distortion in favor of the Zionists, including an attempt to exonerate the occupation of the murder of 254 Palestinians, more than 40% of them children. Yes, we would call that misinformation. Of course, Shmuel apologized via Twitter. In recent remarks I made on Israeli TV offended and hurt those. Oh, so he apologizes for telling the truth? Never. Perhaps, fortunately, UNRWA superiors then recalled Shmuel and his deputy to Jerusalem for consultations. UNRWA's deputy commissioner, Lenny Stentz, quickly took over as temporary head of operations in Gaza. Her first move was to meet with Hamas, where she thanked the head of Hamas movement in the Gaza Strip, Yahya al-Sinwar, for his positivity and desire to continue cooperation. She also added that Shmuel's comments cannot be defended. What? She's afraid the truth might be told? Previous episodes of truth-telling about UNRWA have produced similar results. Back in 2010, during a speech to an Arab American group, Andrew Whitley, the outgoing head of UNRWA's New York office, stated the obvious. We recognize, as he said, we recognize, as I think most do, although it's not a position that we publicly articulate, that the right of return is unlikely to be exercised to the territory of Israel to any significant, meaningful extent. It is not a politically palatable issue. It is not one the UNRWA publicly advocates, but nevertheless, it's known contour to the issue. I want you to think about this. If you tell the truth, there's some good benefits to it. First of all, being honest has its own rewards in many ways. People will trust you more. You'll respect you more. But our news media has lost that concept, and you can see that in their having to recant and say, "Oh, Trump." Well, no, somebody was right. Yeah. Well, maybe the Wuhan virus. Oh, oops. I'm sorry. COVID-19 actually originated in China. Well, if I was right back in March 2020, why did it take them over a year to figure it out? Why did it take them that long? Oh my gosh. You sit here and you learn some of these things and you sit there and go, why did it take them so long? I am down to my last news story for the night. And let me share this one. This comes out of Qatar, and it is by Free Beacon. It's about Qatar. Actually, it's very, very important. I'm going to be having somebody as a guest for my next show on a similar topic like this. But this article, I believe it's by it's Alex Nestor. Qatar behind hostile Israel statements from American universities. Students and faculty, came out June 12th. Students and faculty at American universities in Qatar issued strikingly similar condemnations of Israel during last month's Hamas rocket attacks, one result of a long-standing Qatari campaign to shift U.S. public opinion. Professors at Northwestern University's Qatar campus issued a letter condemning Israel as an apartheid state that commits crimes against humanity. Georgetown University in Qatar followed suit. The Qatari government bankrolls these and other American schools, which are located in the capital city of Doha, through the Qatar Foundation, an arm of the regime aiming at promoting Qatari interests abroad. Qatar Foundation is active here in the United States, people. It's active. It is working to get into your local schools. It's working to get into your colleges. So Qatar is not alone. Nestor continues. Qatar is not alone in its attempts to infiltrate American educational institutions. The China-backed Confucius Institute maintains chapters on American university campuses to promote Chinese interest among students. Through former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo declared Confucius Institute arm of the Chinese Communist Party in August 2020. The Confucius Institute still maintains chapters on 47 United States college campuses. Should be illegal. Qatar Foundation spends $405 million per year to support satellite campuses of American universities in Doha, according to Clarion Project. A separate group, Qatar Foundation International, operates at schools in the United States. Qatar Foundation International is not officially recognized as a foreign agent. It should be. Qatar wants to exert itself more and position itself as a power player. Lawfare Project General Counsel Gerald Filitti told the Washington Free Beacon they want to find a way to influence other countries to predispose them to back agendas, and one way they've done it is through education. It's no secret. The way to influence the next generation of leaders is by educating them. Qatar has extended the same hospitality to terrorist leaders as it has American universities in the regime's capital. The Free Beacon reported that in 2015. Qatar harbored Khalid Masal, a top Hamas official, in a hotel just miles from the American campuses. Qatar has for years funded the Hamas government in Gaza Strip, and in January pledged another $360 million in aid for them. According to Flitti, Qatar Foundation's ultimate aim is to promote the authoritarian regime's interests. Think about that. Oh, whose interests are you really talking about? Well, Qatar is one general thing. What kind of philosophy do they have? Islam. Do they support jihad? Yes. Do they support terrorist type activities that we would call jihad? Yes. Do they support killing Jews? Yes. Will they support killing Christians? Oh, yeah. Will they support killing you if you are a non-Muslim? Yeah, that's what is jihad, people? It's war against non-Muslims. Some of these things are hard to accept. They're hard to know. My suggestion, please, my suggestion is, if you do not understand these things and you want to learn more, go to Amazon, look for, type in my name, Paul Sutliff, or type in The Cancer of Civilization Jihad. This book lays things out as they are said in Islam. So find out for yourself. I'm writing about social norms. Social norms are a little bit more generalized, and I look at them as social norms because that is, again, it's a social psychology way to look at things. Why did I do that? Because I was a teacher. And when I did this, I thought, maybe I won't be retired when I finish. Maybe I'll get it out before. And I thought, oh, jeepers, I got to get this out before, and I got to get this done. And I retired. My goal here is to get the truth out. It's really, really important to tell the truth. However we do that, however we can, get the truth out. Share it. Be unafraid. Truth has to be shared. You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. Facebook, we have a group called the Sutliffian Report. If you go to Twitter, oh my gosh, I haven't been there in a while. I have to stop and think. My handle on Twitter, I don't use it very much. I consider Twitter an of the moment thing. I love LinkedIn. I do far more sharing any place on LinkedIn. On Twitter, I am at Paulos, Paulos 1. Now, again, if you want to stay informed, I will do everything I can to share the news stories. If you want to follow me on Facebook or Sutliffian Report or on LinkedIn, you'll find, again, if you can find me on LinkedIn, and you want to connect with me there, I will insist that you If you don't have very many connections with me, please just tell me you listen to the show. I want to say thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to sign off and say goodbye. My goal is to get the truth out. My purpose is to say the truth. As a Christian, I can't do otherwise. I have to do that. And that's why I do what I do. So for the video show, I'm going to say goodbye.